Okay, hi Lisen, how are you?
Hi, Douglas. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Nice to have you here. I love your glasses, by the way.
Thank
They're
you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
And let's see, you're here to talk about a book that you've got, and I want to find out about your company. How many books do you have published?
This is my second book. This is a co-authored book. My first book, Work, Pause, Thrive, came out in 2017, and it was written in response to watching women sort of try to navigate work and family and looking at these incredible women who had huge careers, who had had these nonlinear paths. And I felt there was just another roadmap out there that many people didn't know about.
So you're the CEO of a company called Prism Work. Why don't you tell us what Prism Work does?
It's pretty exciting, actually. We work with companies as small as startups to huge enterprise companies to help them really understand how they set both their culture and their leadership up for success in this chaotic, complex new world of work. So we do culture 360s where we analyze what does the culture look like, how does that show up internally, and how does that present externally. We do lots of leadership development, lots of learning labs and coaching. We do some executive coaching. And it's an exciting time and a complex time to be running a business like this.
Okay, you mentioned the word culture, and I'm assuming you mean the work culture, the work environment of
Yeah.
companies, corporations. What has changed? I mean, I know technologically a lot has changed, and especially during COVID, people started doing a lot of work from home, and that seemed to stick. Give me, like, I know there's a million things, but give me an overview of what has changed, like, from the 70s, 80s to now in terms
It's a
of,
great question, Douglas. Thank you for asking it. It's sort of the foundational questions for why we wrote the book, Intentional Power. Here's a little history lesson. We'll make it brief, but corporate culture as we know it, as corporate America as we have known it, really came of age when so many hard working GIs came back from World War II. They were benefited from the GI Bill, went to college and became knowledge workers. When they went into the workplace, what they brought with them was that experience that they'd had in the military. And that's what they knew of leadership and of culture and what you do. It's hierarchical, it's centralized decision making, it's often sort of my way or the highway. Then it evolved into, although it wasn't always this way, into really being focused. The purpose of the corporation, not just the culture, but the purpose of the corporation really became in the 70s and the 80s about profits, right? It's Milton Friedman, Nobel Prize winning economist, Milton Friedman, who said the purpose of the corporation is really about shareholder value. For a long time that worked, at least it worked for some. It didn't work for everybody. And it hasn't worked, frankly, for a long time for many of us, right? We saw a mass exodus, even though women have been graduating more from college than men in the United States since 1985. I think last year it was 65, 67%. We know that all those skills aren't necessarily succeeding. We don't have, women rising up the ladder. Other diverse talent, different racial ethnicities, and so on, really haven't thrived necessarily. So there's been a push me, pull you in terms of what does corporate culture and what is the purpose of the corporation, really. In 2019, the Business Roundtable, which is the top 200 companies, American corporations, the CEOs get together and they talk about this stuff. And what they determined in 2019 is that the role of the corporation, the purpose of the corporation has expanded. It's no longer just about shareholder value. It's literally about how do you actually do the right thing for people, for planet, and for profits. It has to be more than just one singular ambition of profits. It's for a lot of different reasons, not the least of which is they were getting pressure by the next generation of talent who was much more diverse and much broader in their ambitions, saying we want to actually work in places that align with our values. We want to work in places that make us feel good about what we're doing with our precious time. All of that was already happening before COVID. And then, of course, COVID hit and boom, everything that we knew about corporate culture changed. Everything we even knew about leadership changed. How do you lead in a way where you're not sitting right next to people? What does that look like? How do we overcome all of these perceptions of the way it used to work? So, right, COVID was this in some ways, a kind of a painful, but also a really beautiful opportunity to rethink how we do things. It's hard, though. For the many leaders who are at the top of the organization, they came of age in a certain way. They believed that, and it was successful for them. But that's not the recipe for success anymore. There's a new way of working, a new way to lead. It's much more collaborative. It's much more, frankly, humble. It's about servant leadership. How can I get my team to do good work? And it's about, hey, how do we work together to do things far bigger than just drive profits to the bottom line, which again are important, but don't necessarily have to be the only reason or the raison d'etre for an organization. So a lot of stuff there, but
the CEO still does have to lead the company.
Sure.
Explain how that would
How
work.
do you do that?
Yeah, how do you do that?
Well, I have lots of thoughts on this. I think who is a leader is being questioned. Our definitions of leadership are being questioned. We're looking at leadership now in a whole new way, in that every single person at every level of the organization can and is a leader now, right? If you're an individual contributor, you're still a leader at your company because you influence your team, you influence your clients, you have influence, externally in the world, how you show up and how you talk about the company you're engaging with. That is leadership. We never thought of it that way before, but we're starting to see that really matters, which gives power. It sort of democratizes what the organization structure looks like and what we want to do. That means that those individuals who are at the top, right? Even that term may be old, but that are quote unquote running the company, those leaders have to figure out how can they lead in a way that inspires and creates almost a chalice, if you will, of allowing people to truly thrive. What are the programs, policies, and practices that allow these sort of more democratic, more flexible, agile, innovative cultures to really succeed, that are global and are distributed and are diverse and are kind of all these different things. And it's a whole new way of thinking about leadership and a whole new way of showing up that is challenging. And it's hard, which is why we do the work we do with so many leaders around the globe.
So Prism Work.
And why we wrote the book.
So Prism Work is about what? About teaching other people this idea of leadership? New idea?
Well, at the end of the day, Prism Work really believes, or my colleagues and I fundamentally believe, that what used to work no longer works, but we don't have a new paradigm. We don't have a new roadmap. That's literally why we wrote The Intentional Power, the 6 essential leadership skills for triple bottom line impact, triple being people, planet, and profits, which is literally what the Business Roundtable came out to said is the purpose of the corporation. We fundamentally believe that, and we know it's really hard to figure out how to do that. So what we're doing and what we do with leaders is actually help them understand what they're bringing, what they've learned, how to unlearn things, how to make it different in their environment, what they can do differently so that they're actually meeting this moment, this complex, confusing, chaotic moment, and actually drive more profits to the bottom line, attract and retain the talent they want, and actually have the impact on the world that they individually and they want their companies to have.
How many employees do you have?
Oh, we're small. We're intentionally a small team. We bring in collaborators depending on the nature of the project. So we have, 15 different collaborators that we work with on any given project, but the core team's only 4.
So is your primary task public speaking? Do you go around to various places? Is that what you do? Spend most of your time doing? Yeah.
It's one of the many things that I do. I certainly support our clients to the best of my ability. I speak about this, write about this. I write for the Harvard Business Review and other outlets. I speak about this. I have written a book, Intentional Power, about this. I teach at Stanford about this. I'm pretty much a one-woman campaign for things have to be different. The way it was done isn't working, and we need new solutions, and we need them fast.
So the book Intentional Power, who is that geared to? Who is the target audience? Is it CEOs?
I'll share with you. Well, it's a great question. So I'll share with you a story. I recently was asked to keynote a summit for a very large, pretty technical, high-tech company. They're a global team. And frankly, I was a little nervous, Douglas, because I thought, how is it going to land with the sales engineers that are out there around the globe? And are they going to hear the message about new leadership? It honestly, frankly, almost brought me to tears to see the response in the chat as they were saying this kind of leadership, this modern leadership, bringing these 6 essential skills are exactly the way I want to show up and I want to lead. And in fact, I just found out literally Friday that there are a bunch of book groups now starting around the company that are going through the book, talking about how are they individually showing up? How can they as a team do things better? Talk about sort of fuel to a writer's heart, if you will, or an author's heart. That was pretty spectacular.
Oh, that's great. How long has the
Yeah.
book been out?
It just came out 3 weeks ago now. And I'm thrilled to say, bragging author moment, we're already a bestseller in Barnes & Noble and on Amazon. It's gaining a lot of traction. And what's exciting is a lot of that movement is word of mouth. Someone's reading it and bringing it to their team and saying, hey, just read this. You might want to learn more about this. This is really cool. And that is how change happens. This is how movements are started, right? The word of mouth.
What company, corporation that's out there currently do you think is on the right track, is following your model to some degree?
Well, there's no perfect place. There might be perfect for you, but it isn't necessarily perfect for everyone. So let's start there. We have startups that we work with that are trying to infuse into their company at the beginning stages of their growth the right systems and the right mindset and the right approach to how we're going to build culture. I'm so inspired by them. Again, I can't give names. We have huge global corporations that are bringing us in and having us do these leadership labs for different verticals across the company and different teams across the company. And that's inspiring. What I love is seeing the breadth of our client base saying, we know something's going to have to change. Moving beyond our client base, I'm so inspired by some of the work that I see at Microsoft is doing really wonderful things. They are really trying to show up and stand up for a different way of working. I think Satya Nadella has really owned the concept of kind of modern, empathetic, compassionate leadership. I'm so inspired by that. There are others. There's so many others, and we profile a number of them in our book. So read the book.
Well, okay. I will do that at some point, although I don't run a corporation, so it might not be anything I
right.
need.
Take a while. It's on Audible now, which I love.
Okay. Well, anyways, we got to wind this down. Thanks so much for coming on. The book is called Intentional Power, and my guest is Lisen Stromberg. Do you have a website you want to give out?
Sure. Listeners can go to www.prismwork, PRISMWORK.com. They can also go to www.HEARTIQuotient.com, and they can actually take their own self-assessment to see where they measure up relative to the thousands of leaders around the globe that have taken the modern leadership self-assessment we created. It's pretty cool. So HEARTIQuotient.com is the other place they can go.
Well, Lisen, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you, and best of luck with everything you're doing.
Thanks, Douglas. Honored to be here.